All right, welcome everyone. We're going to get started shortly, just waiting for everyone to kind of get settled into the room. I can see we've got quite a few people coming in. Nice to see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. So I'm Todd Humber, the Senior Editor for OHS Canada. I'd like to welcome you to our special webinar on the advantages of reusable respirators for safety, sustainability, and savings for your business. I am thrilled to be joined today by Claudio Dente, the president and founder of Dentec Safety Specialists. But before I turn the mic over to Claudio, just a couple of housekeeping items to run through. You, the audience, are in listen-only mode. That means we cannot see you or hear you, but we definitely want to hear from you. We have some time set aside at the end of today's session for a Q&A with Claudio. You can enter your questions at any time using the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your Zoom webinar control panel. So look for that. Today's session is being recorded. You will receive a link to the recording in 24 hours. So keep an eye out for that. It will be sent to the same email that you used to register. Now, it's my pleasure to hand over the mic to our speaker today. Claudio, take it away.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Claudio Dente. I'm co-founder of Dentec Safety Specialists. We're going to share with you some information on a journey that we took that came about because of COVID, and some information that I think you'll be surprised at what you see. So let me start. We specialize in safety solutions as a company. We have many years of experience in design, manufacturing, production, distribution of safety equipment, and I personally have been in the industry over 40 years. We have a very wide assortment of products covering the PPE space, and our passion is providing the right solution to fit each business and their unique needs. We have two locations. Our head office is located, as you see here in the top picture, in Newmarket, Ontario, where we have production, distribution, and warehousing. And we actually have two facilities in Lenexa, Kansas, Kansas City area. One location is dedicated to injection molding, manufacturing, and so forth. And the second location is dedicated to packaging, distribution, and warehousing. All of our half masks, filters, cartridges are manufactured and assembled in Kansas. And we do that with using 100% American-made raw materials. We're a Canadian family-owned business, and we're very proud of what we've accomplished so far. And because of this manufacturing capability, we have zero dependency on foreign supply. And that has become a very important issue as we've all experienced the challenges throughout COVID. So why did we create this solution? So COVID created massive shortages of NIOSH-approved disposable respirators, amongst other key PPE products. It prevented healthcare, frontline, and general industry workers from approved respiratory protection to conduct their work ongoing. So what I'm trying to say there, folks, is not only did we protect healthcare workers during a time of need, we also allowed companies to continue to operate, and that would be office workers, warehouse workers, and the like, so they could wear a respirator such as ours and continue to generate revenue. Prior to COVID, no one conducted a thorough comparison of the performance of end user acceptance of reusable respirators versus elastomeric rubber respirators. And shame on me, folks. I've been around for over 40 years, as I mentioned, and COVID caused us and me to personally engage in this process. So versus disposable respirators, elastomeric rubber masks were thought to be heavier, generally uncomfortable, hotter, harder to breathe, did not fit well with other PPE, safety glasses, goggles, face shields, etc., and more expensive to use. But what we learned is that a reusable respirator such as ours will not cause facial impressions, particularly at the most critical fitting point being the nose bridge area. One of the things that COVID brought to light was with extensive use of a disposable respirator and a large population, a much larger population of people wearing them, they're not that comfortable to wear, as you can see from this particular individual. Will not fog safety of prescription glasses due to the airtight seal. And that is an important feature of reusable respirators, particularly ours, because you are able to get an effective seal. And many of our team folks have to wear not only plain old safety glasses, but also prescription eyewear. And when fogging occurs during intense work applications, it's a significant problem for the user. You can conduct a positive or negative pressure seal check every time you don the respirator. As you probably know, folks, when you implement a respirator program, you have to conduct a series of things, including fit testing and so on. Once you're properly fit tested on a respirator, every time you put the mask on, you must conduct a seal check to ensure the mask is seated properly on your face so you can go into the work hazard. It's very simple to do with a disposable respirator. It's very difficult to, it's very easy to do with a reusable respirator. It's very difficult to do with a disposable style respirator. It is less expensive than using disposable respirators, and I'm going to show you that with the consumption reduction calculations that we have available to us. And another big thing that came about because of COVID, we will reduce environmental waste by an enormous amount because of the reduced issue of disposing of masks versus the reusability of filters. So what we learned during COVID, due to the extensive and long-term use of reusable elastomeric respirators, we learned that reusable respirators are more comfortable than wearing disposables. The feel of the rubber against the skin is immediate. You'll notice a very comfortable and soft touch against your skin. A variety of rubber mask materials. We as a company offer different types of elastomeric rubber, including silicone, thermoplastic, and a unique elastomeric rubber formulation. So we have a different feel depending on what preference the individual may have. And between our three mask materials, we have 5 different sizes. We all know the challenges that we faced with the issue of sizing, because disposable respirators have very limits into the sizing capabilities. And during the pandemic, the manufacturers were only producing the one size if they did offer a smaller size. Heat buildup inside the mask is the same or lower than using disposable respirator with an exhalation valve. I'll show you some experiments that we conducted to prove that in a few moments. It's actually 3 to 5 degrees cooler than a disposable respirator with an exhalation valve. So folks, one of the big issues that you'll have and I had was, boy, it's going to get hot in that rubber mask, and it's absolutely the opposite. It's no hotter and actually cooler than a disposable respirator. It's less expensive than disposable respirators I mentioned earlier because of the reduction in filtration replacement, and we are going to dramatically reduce environmental waste. Now, what makes our reusable respirator function the manner it does is this filter cover. So we have this cover that allows us to mount an N95 filter that you see here that we manufacture in Lenexa, and it's NOSH approved as an N95 filter, and it mounts into this housing. There's a back side and a front side, and the rings is a front cover. And once you put it together, you snap it together, and you simply mount it to the mask. Now, what the rings do, as you can see from this unique design, it protects the filter. So if you're working in very dusty applications or applications where there's maybe hot sparks or pieces of the silica dust or concrete block or wood dust that might be coming at you because they're being projected by some type of tool, cutting tool, it's going to protect the filter, and it allows it to allows the filter to last longer. And as you probably know, when you're dealing with particulate filters, the indicator to change the filter is when it becomes difficult to breathe. So you'll notice a significant amount of breathing resistance as the filter starts to load up. The other thing that is of great benefit with our design of our filter cover, when a user takes the respirator off and places it on a table, maybe in their workplace, the filters do not come in contact with the surface. So disposable respirators, when you put them down, they're generally white, as we all know, and they are going to collect dirt and dust. And just because they're dirty or a little bit of dirt on it doesn't mean it doesn't function, but the user will take the time to dispose of it. Now, one of the other objections about using disposable respirators was breathing resistance. People thought it's going to be more difficult to breathe through a a reusable respirator than it is with a disposable respirator. And what I have here on the slide is the NIOSH breathing requirements when you send a product in for approval for inhalation and exhalation. And it's based on liters per minute. And you can see here from the chart, the inhalation level is 35 and the exhalation level is 25. So if you go above these numbers, it's a failure. So what we did as a test is that we compared our own disposable style N95 respirator to the NIOSH requirements. As you can see here, we have an inhalation of 6.9 and exhalation of 5.5, breathing resistance, which is very low. And this percentage is a percentage difference versus the NIOSH minimum requirements. Now, folks, this is our Comfort Air NX reusable respirator. And as you can see, the breathing resistance is lower than our disposable respirators by some, 40 or 50%. And of course, versus the NIOSH requirements is significantly lower. And then we have P100 cartridges that are also available, and our breathing resistance is again lower than the NIOSH requirements, but we're also lower than our own disposable respirator. So that dispels the objection that reusable respirators, such as ours, are difficult to breathe through. It's not the case. Then I had to prove to myself how hot the heat buildup is inside the mask. So what we did, folks, we took disposables and our reusable respirators, and I conducted an experiment. The experiment was really done to duplicate or mimic a healthcare patient interaction. So the experiment, we took room temperature recordings at base level being 76.1, and I apologize, we do have this in Celsius, but I'm an old guy, so I still like Fahrenheit. And then I sat with the mask, and I had a digital thermometer with a probe that we could insert into the facepiece. And we took recordings at 15, 45, and 2 minutes, as you can see here. And as you can see, the temperature starts to elevate inside the mask. Then what we did was we walked around our distribution center at a very quick pace for 500 paces and recorded the temperature when we got back to the office. What I wanted to do was to elevate the breathing inside the mask to determine what the temperature would be. And then we go on to, I sat down at a table and I breathed very hard into the respirator, like blowing up a balloon. And I did that 20 times. And then I sat at the desk for at 5 and 10 minute intervals and took the temperature recordings. So the first mask is a typical 3-ply mask that we see that's been used in a hospital for many, many years. And you can watch that you can see the temperature elevate at the peak to 89, close to 90 degrees. Leading competitor products went up to 92.48. Our own disposable respirator went up to 92.3. So that, to me, folks, proved this experiment has the right information. Now, our reusable respirator without an exhalation valve, as you can see, was 90 degrees. And you can see here, it's at 90 degrees as well. Our P100 cartridge was 91.96. Now, our N95 respirator on our reusable mask with an exhalation valve only had a temperature recording at the highest level of 85. So this experiment allowed us to dispel that theory of reusable respirators are hotter than disposable. However, I wanted to take it to another level. And I had this individual who's a chiropractor and a long-distance road cyclist train on his training machine. And he rode, as you can see here, for 18 minutes. And he's a fit young man. And he rode at an average speed of 20 miles per hour and had his heart rate at an average of 135. And when we look at the results from that, it was amazing to me, because we tested all the same masks again in the same interval levels. And we see that the blue mask, which was, of course, a medical mask, was 80 degrees. But what happened was it was so wet with moisture, it collapsed and wouldn't function anymore. Our disposable N95 respirator, we got to a temperature of 92 degrees. Our Comfort Air NX, so that's our respirator without an exhalation valve, was at 89.42 degrees. And our respirator with an exhalation valve was down to 84 degrees. So now we have the information to support whether you're sitting, working hard with elevated breathing rates. A reusable respirator will not have the same heat buildup or as low a heat buildup as disposable respirators. So that helped give us the comfort in understanding that we've handled that objection as well. Our respirator is also compatible with a whole host of other PPE products. Hard hats, safety glasses, goggles, as you can see here. It's important that particularly in the workplace, industrial workplace, and also we saw it happen heavily in the healthcare market where people had to wear plain old safety glasses. Reusable half-mask respirators, not all of them fit well, are compatible with safety glasses. We have to keep in mind that 40 to 50% of the world's population wears prescription, so it's a big deal to have proper compatibility between the eyewear of the user and the respirator, whether it's a disposable product or not. Our products will fit underneath any type of face shield, whether it's a medical style or industrial style, due to the low profile design. And the industrial sector, when people are grinding or cutting concrete, wood, and other types of materials, it's common to be wearing not only a face shield, but safety glasses underneath. So we can accommodate a whole host of other types of products. Now, let's get to the numbers. And we wanted to simulate or show the type of cost savings that's involved when you move to a product such as ours from a disposable. And in this example, if you follow my arrow here, we have selected that we have an Excel calculator that we've created where you can insert the number of employees. We say how many disposable respirators per person per day. Typically, our experience is that the general workplace uses approximately 2 disposable respirators per person per day. Some use more. Now, these are the work days per month, which is 20, of course. And in this example, we show that we give the user a reusable rubber mask every month for a 12-month period. And the number of filters that are replaced would be 1 pair per week. Now, let me preface that, is that because of the manner in which our protective cover housing protects the filter, we will be able to get longer life than a disposable respirator in the marketplace. Multiple days, of course, it depends on the application, concentration, and so forth. But for this example, we're going to 1 pair per week. This $2 is the average MSRP cost for a disposable respirator. So now when we put all of this information together, when we come down to this part of the chart, we are going to show the savings for our most expensive mask, our being silicone, our 300 thermoplastic, and our 400 elastomeric mask. And these costs are a tabulation of this that you see up here. And here are the average costs for our products and the cost for a pair of filters and the cost of disposable respirators. So what this shows us is the amount of the consumption on a first month, second month, third month, fourth month, fifth month, and then annual savings. So 20 people that will get will use or purchase a rubber mask every month are going to save $6,800 for the silicone mask, $9,900 for the elastomeric mask, and $10,000. Now, over on this side of the chart, what we've done is reduced the amount of times we give them a reusable respirator to 0.25. So it's going to be approximately 3 or 4 times a year. That's more realistic. Reusable rubber masks are very robust. They can take a lot of punishment. They have replacement parts. So this is a higher value than what we would be perceived. and what we expect to see in the real world. And using all those same numbers, we're going to have a savings here, which increases, of course, from 6,800 to 14,000 rough dollars, 15 and 1536. So now we've dispelled the comfort issue, we've dispelled the heat buildup issue, we've dispelled the breathing resistance issue, and now we're bringing to the point that we're going to be able to save money to the marketplace, to the users. We have the manner in which we sell reusable respirators. We have a whole host of configurations. You can buy the mask on its own. You can buy the mask with the filter loaded onto it. We have N95 versions and P100 in pancake style or traditional cartridge style in all mask configurations. As you can see here, we also have full face pieces that allow us to attach an N95 or a P100 type style cartridge to it if the application needs it. And these are all the replacement parts and components. As part of the service, what we'd be happy to do is we have a free respirator protection guide on how to choose the right filters that we can make available to you, that we also have on our website. Now, I understand from seeing some of the list of the participants that are sitting in on it, there are some healthcare workers and EMS individuals as well. We have a separate document, the training document presentation for our Comfort Air NX respirator, which specifically targets the healthcare market. It's a reusable half mask you saw earlier in the presentation without an exhalation valve. And if you're interested, we'd be happy to share that with you and send you literature on it, and also conduct a training session for you as well. I'd like to thank you for your time, and at this point, I'd be happy to take any questions that might come from the audience.
Thank you, Claudio. Great presentation as usual. So get to the questions here. The first one we've got, this one just came in. Why are we giving a new rubber mask every month? Is this assuming the worker is using the mask every day, or is this a recommendation?
No, what I was trying to do there is I wanted to see what the cost savings fictitiously if we gave them a mask every month. Because depending on the application, your workplace, how dirty the environment, and your protocol for the use of respirators, I look at it this way, folks. A respirator is like a good pair of jeans. You take care of it, it'll last a long time, right? So a reusable respirator, as I mentioned earlier, generally speaking, is made out of very robust materials, including rubber. There are replacement parts that can be used. Traditionally, the part that goes most often is the suspension. And so the reduction, the cost of a reusable mask, you should get several months out of an existing mask before replacement is needed. I just wanted to build that in to see the cost example.
Great, thanks, Claudio. Next question. You talked a little bit about that example you gave where he was using the blue medical mask where it got wet after a certain period of time and no longer became functional.
Yeah.
How quickly will that happen in a industrial setting? It doesn't. The person asking this question didn't say what industry. They just said an industrial setting.
So please understand this, is that when we conducted this experiment, we were targeting the healthcare market. And when you look at the healthcare market, traditionally most often they're going to be working in a controlled environment, right? It's going to be air conditioned in a hospital room or a doctor's office and so forth. When we look at the industrial workplace, right? It's not often that you're going to use a facial mask or a face covering like that. But when you get intense heat, and we're in Toronto, I'm Newmarket, Ontario, and the last 3 days have been incredibly humid and super hot. When you get into environments like that, when you breathe out, the moisture buildup and the humidity inside the mask will be significant, whether it's a medical mask or whether it's an N95 disposable or whether it's a reusable. Because of the design and the materials of a face mask, a medical mask, it's not designed to withstand that kind of intensity of humidity. So I hope that answers your question.
I think good explanation, Claudio. Thank you. Next one here. If you use the half face, without the exhalation valve, do you get condensation inside the face piece?
You will get condensation inside the face piece with or without an exhalation valve. Again, remember the product without the exhalation valve, or Comfort Air NX, was designed more for the healthcare market. And it's also designed for applications that are in more temperature control. So office environments and restaurants and things of that nature, to allow the businesses to continue to operate as best as possible, depending on the level of the pandemic. Even with an exhalation valve, you're going to get condensation and moisture buildup inside a rubber mask, as well as a disposable respirator. What happens with the disposable respirator, as condensation builds up, what happens is the mask becomes softer, and because of the heat, moisture buildup on the inside of the face piece, and with repeated donning and doffing, second and third time, it's very difficult to obtain a seal because the mask structure is softer.
Gotcha. This another question here, kind of a follow-up to that, talking about the exhalation valve. Any concerns that that valve compromises the seal or the fit? Are there some industries or environments where it's more suitable to use that?
Well, we have to remember that prior to COVID, a reusable respirator, half-mask respirator without an exhalation valve did not exist. It's only because of COVID that the CDC called to action to the manufacturers to develop such a product. So where is it intended for is, if we look at it again from a healthcare perspective, we want to prevent the transmittance of a virus between the wearer of the mask to the patient or the people around them, and vice versa. And that can only be done if you're wearing a respirator without an exhalation valve, right? Exhalation valves, in general terms, respirators with exhalation valves, reusables in particular, have always had an exhalation valve in them, and they can be used anywhere. However, because of the pandemic and the concern for the spread of the virus, we now have a reusable respirator without an exhalation. And let me preface that too. There are some manufacturers that took a different tactic, and they put filters on their exhalation valves. So nowadays we have reusable respirators with an exhalation valve, reusable respirators, although not many, without an exhalation valve, and we have reusable respirators with filters on their exhalation valves. And again, there aren't many of those. Hope that answers.
I think it does. Just a quick one here. You mentioned that you're based in Newmarket, Ontario. Do you do business in every province? Will you ship across Canada?
Yes. So we do business across Canada and the United States. We have a very large network of distributors that service the marketplace. Generally speaking, we don't sell direct to the consumer. But if you're interested in our products, if you connect with us, we'll be happy to guide you and help you get access to them.
Great, thanks. Next question here is around training. How can organizations ensure that their employees are properly trained in the use and maintenance of reusable respirators to maximize safety and effectiveness?
Well, we have to, remember that if your application requires a respirator program from your workplace hazard assessment, then you have to implement a respirator program according to CSA respirator standard requirements. That includes a number of things. Assuming that you've done your hazard assessment, you determine the type of respirator you need, whether half full face piece, particular type of cartridge, maybe you need air supplied or so forth. Then once you've selected or determined the type of respirator you need, you have to establish a respirator program that consists of record keeping, training, ongoing qualitative or quantitative fit testing. You have to be trained on the limitations of the respirator, the signs of when it's time to change your respirator, the indicators to change a cartridge or a filter. There's a whole host of things that have to be done. However, while they may sound complicated, they're not. It's just a series of exercises or functions that you have to do. There's some paperwork involved, of course. And then once you get into the rhythm after your respirator program is established, then things will run on autopilot. There's much more difficult quality control procedures that are required in manufacturing operation than establishing a respirator program.
Great, thank you. Somebody here is creeping your website live during the session, and they're asking here, I'm on your website. I see that you do sell respirators directly online. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. So that's good to know. If you want to check it out, you can go to the website. Next question here. Do you have probed versions of your face pieces to allow for quantitative fit testing?
That's a great question. So for those of you who have done fit testing, there's two protocols. There's qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative is where you expose the users or individuals to some type of irritant. It could be Bitrex, it could be a smoke, and so forth. You put them in a hood with the respirator, and you do a series of exercises to determine that size of respirator with that filter fits that person. Now, when you do quantitative fit testing, you're using an instrument, a computer system. The popular ones in the market are TSI port account and an OHD QuantiFit. For the TSI port account systems, we no longer use a probe. So a probe means that we would take a little metal tube and we would poke a hole in the mask, whether it's a reusable or disposable, and then we attach a tube to it, and the tube goes down into the machine, the quantitative machine, and then you conduct your series of fit testing exercises, and the machine records the actual measurement of air outside, particularly inside the mask, and it's a better way. Of course, it's a better way, a more accurate way of fit testing. We actually make a fit test adapter that we mount the cartridge to, that mounts onto the mask, and the fit test adapter has a probe. And the beauty of that is that when the user walks away from their fit testing, they walk away and we don't destroy the mask, whether it's disposable or whether it's reusable. And they walk away with the respirator intact. And let me bring that to give you a little more explanation. When you conduct fit testing with a disposable respirator, when you conduct quantitative fit testing, you have to destroy the mask because you poke a hole in it and insert this probe. So if you outfit 100 people, you throw away 100 disposable respirators, and then you issue them a new one so they can go to work. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Next question here. Do disposable respirators require fit testing? And they have in brackets here, industrial setting.
So disposable let me start over again.
Sure.
Any respirator requires and must be fit tested if your workplace hazard assessment is deemed you require respiratory protection. So regardless of whether it's disposable or whether it's reusable, you must conduct fit testing protocol.
All right, next question. Are there any success stories or case studies that you can share where companies have successfully transitioned from disposable to reusable and the outcomes that they achieved?
Yes, we have. Of course, this all started because of COVID, and the majority of our testimonials have come from the healthcare market. And we have some large users that have converted, hospitals that have converted over from not only disposable N95 masks, but also from traditional medical style masks. Now that I hope the COVID pandemic has subsided, we are really concentrating our energy, as you can see here from this webinar, on the workplace, general industrial workplace application to help people understand the story of converting from a disposable to a reusable. We have a couple of large ones that have just happened over the course of the last few months that we have glowing responses from, but we also have a whole series of testimonials from people that have been using our reusable respirator, and they love it.
Great. Next question here. Just asking, it's kind of a specific question, so maybe you can answer it, maybe you can't. But do you know of any hospitals in Canada that have converted to a reusable product?
There are a couple, but I don't know to the extent of that answer. I can't answer that because we don't have a strong presence in the healthcare marketplace in the Canadian space. In the United States, we were given fortunate to qualify for a multi-million-dollar grant from the U.S. government, which allowed us to ramp up our production. But we then also received a very large award for our Comfort Air NX reusable respirator from the Strategic National Stockpile. And that stockpile was not a product that sat on a shelf. It was the first step that the U.S. government took to issue and give away reusable half masks to the marketplace. So this is a reusable half mask without an exhalation valve for the healthcare space is brand new. It's a new wave. And so we are really starting at this new journey, and also to help give you a little more understanding of what's happening is in February 2022, the 100 top health experts to the United States, to the White House, came up with a roadmap to preparing for the pandemic. One of their top recommendations was to issue all healthcare workers reusable half mask respirator and compare it versus a disposable during high level pandemic situations. So again, we're in the beginning of the wave. The wave is just starting to build, and over the course of the next few years, we'll see a tremendous movement in the reusable respirator arena without an exhalation valve for the healthcare space.
Great, thanks, Claudio. This is a comment. Can't confirm this, but just as an FYI, St. Mary's in Kitchener and South Lake Hospital have apparently implemented reusable respirator programs in certain departments. So,
yeah, thank you for sharing that, folks.
Yeah, couple examples there. I think we've got time here for another questions. This one's a little bit of a broad one, but any specific industries or applications where reusable respirators may not be suitable or practical? And in those cases, what alternatives can be considered?
So the presentation, the webinar today centers around converting from a disposable respirator to a reusable respirator. And traditionally, the bigger filter will be an N95. So the industries that would use that type of product are more popular ones are construction because of silica dust. If you're depending on what you're doing, but grinding or cutting wood or metal will also be that type of application. When you have to conduct a workplace hazard assessment to determine all the PPE needs for that workplace, but in particular, when we're talking about respiratory protection, you'll have to determine what type of respirator you need. And it's all dependent on the chemicals or the dust particles that you're dealing with. That will determine the type of respirator you need to use. It could be a disposable, a respirator with an APF of 10, a sign protection factor of 10. It could say you must use a half mask with an organic vapor cartridge. It could say you need to use air supplied. It could say you need to use air supplied with escape bottles. Again, the application dictates the type of respiratory protection you need.
Got you. And I think that is going to be it for today. That's going to bring us to the end of our session. So I'd like to thank everyone on the line for joining us, taking the time out of your day to listen in. Just a reminder, you will receive a link to this recording in 24 hours, so keep an eye out for that. It will come directly to the email you used to register for today's session. Claudio, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise. Always a pleasure to hear you speak. I always learn something interesting, and today was no exception. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you all. Be safe.
Thank you. And on behalf of OHS Canada and our partners at Dentec Safety, we wish you a safe rest of your day. Thank you.